Hello, promoters, and welcome to Roll Up, the official Phil Singer Games podcast. I am your co-host, Sam Fain, joined, of course, by Todd Dorschel, the tournament master. Todd, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great on this lovely October day.
Yes, indeed. It's a
The
Wednesday.
it's a Wednesday.
Again.
Again, yes, yeah. The last day of the Major League Baseball regular season, which everybody plays. It kind of cool this year. They did it. Everybody played at 4 o'clock at the same time, so there's no advantage in case there's any anything that needed tiebreakers and stuff. And of course, everything had already been decided last night, so it didn't really matter today. But that's okay.
Right. Yeah, man, I would talk some baseball, but the truth of the matter is we've got a jam-packed show.
We have a lot to get to. Yes,
right.
yes.
I feel like we should just dive in. First of all, we have an awesome main event. Shannon Hunter from CZW is joining us to talk about Combat Zone Wrestling and, of course, the Tournament of Death 19, which takes place on October 29th. You can find out all the information at czwrestling.com. Of course, you should definitely check them out on social media. Just search for Combat Zone Wrestling. There's Facebook group, there's Instagram, and of course there's Twitter. Also, make sure you hit up Shannon's Twitter account, Shay Hunter, at Shay Hunter. It's SHAE Hunter, for all the latest updates. She's been awesome at posting everything as far as all the entrance names for Tournament of Death, and it helped to kind of create a lot of buzz with some big names, including Necro Butcher. Mickey Knuckles is going to be in there. And of course, one of our personal favorites here at the podcast, or Invite, will be in the Tournament of Death this year as well. And so we've got a great jam-packed interview with her as our main event. But before we get there, we certainly want to cover all of our teasers. And we're going to start off with the Legends Prime teaser for the past week. And that was none other than US Express. Super excited to have this version of Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham in the game. I think that the art looks great. And I just, again, I'm very, very excited about having these two cards. I think the stats are great. And it's just awesome to have this version of these two guys. Of course, we've had Barry for a while now, coming out in Legends Expansion 2, which was kind of the main event, NWA title chasing Barry Windham, and of course we got the Mike Rotunda card in the last TNT set, which was sort of the Varsity Club version of Rotunda, and now getting the two of them together as US Express I think is fantastic. I've got some fond memories, early memories of them in WWF, as of course tag team champions there for a while, managed by none other than Captain Lou Albano. Some indelible moments, including, of course, appearing on the very first WrestleMania, which they did come out on the losing end of, to fellow Legends of Wrestling icons, Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. That's not the only feud that you can recreate. Of course, we also have Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine as the Dream Team with Luscious Johnny V manager card. So a lot of really cool stuff that you can kind of replicate if you want to, or take them in an entirely different direction. Match them up against the Bulldogs. Match them up against Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, see what happens. Apparently, I did not know this, but apparently they did take on a heel Fabulous Ones in AWA. So learn something new every day. I know, right? Todd, thoughts on the US Express?
No, very awesome to have them there. I know, as soon as we had Rotunda, that was obviously we wanted to do the Varsity Club type look, but this was like right beyond it, right afterwards there, having Wyndham there, that was a big want from everybody on the team. I think it surprised a couple people how that it came out that quick, because I don't think a lot of people were expecting if we did it would be in December with the Northeast set that we have planned coming out. But no, we got them out right away there, and I think people were pretty excited. So definitely really cool to have them. Another great team, another great championship team to put in the roster there.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm completely sold on having the team here in the game. And I have the great fortune in my Legends Fed of actually not having used the Rotunda card yet. I used him in my kind of MMA sort of inspired fed, but I have not used him in my regular Legends fed, and I have not used Barry Windham yet in my Legends fed.
Oh,
So this is a perfect opportunity to bring them in as the tag team first, and then figure out what I want to do with them as singles. But of course, if you're already using them, as singles, there's still plenty of ways to get them into a tag team if you want to, or just look at the cards because they're pretty and save them for a later date.
always possible. Yes, yes, yes.
Of course, that's not all that's happening. We also have the official announcement for FTR returning in Q3 of COTG Prime with the reveal of Totally Awesome. Totally Awesome
Yeah.
getting an update. Super excited about this. Really digging the art, which obviously we had a small hand in sort of directing, if you will,
Yeah.
and then Warner created it for us. But it's we've been it's funny because we talked so much, and here's just kind of a little look behind the curtain. We talked so much up front about what we wanted to do with FTR and where we wanted to go, that so many of the plans were kind of in place. And then truth be told, after Q2 there was so much going on with with the Galacticon and TNT, and then prepping the next round of teasers and sets and everything, and plus just everything else that's happening in life
Everything
for
else in
both of
life.
us.
Yeah.
That we kind of cooled off just a little bit as far as having like constant conversations about FTR. The nice thing is, and I don't know if you feel this way, because at this point, frankly, you've done the bulk of the work. It's my turn to kind of like do some of the writing, but I kind of feel like picking it back up has been super easy. So I'm really enthusiastic about authoring this next chapter and getting it out there for people so that they can see the cool stuff, hopefully
Yeah.
cool stuff that's in store for them. And and starting off with an update for Totally Awesome, I'm stoked.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, totally awesome. I did not realize was the first FTR character that Rob created, and the only character that's still an FTR from that first set who was still using that original card. So, but yeah, just kind of he seemed like he really needed something there, and the storyline that we have for him this year definitely I think necessitated having that update. So yeah, more to come on that soon. And then we kind of mentioned also there is another tag team that will have some cards there in the set too. Have you seen the artwork? You've seen the artwork for
I
that before,
have
right,
seen the
Sam?
artwork, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to say the
Yeah.
least. Matt Dick and Disher had a hand in creating that. There was an ongoing process back and forth with some different looks and stuff like that. But it's really kind of fun how they kind of came out, and they'll be an interesting addition to FTR for sure as well. So yeah, you'll have to wait till you get your cards to see that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm looking forward to people getting their hands on them. And I think that it's worth, kind of noting that with Electric Axe already having an update and then wanting to get Totally Awesome with an update, that part of that is that we want Mad Maxis to, to really, really compete at that sort of tag team main event level,
Yeah,
and with some of the other teams that are out there, it just felt like now was the time to do that.
yeah,
And the fact that we get to bring in a brand new tag team as well, courtesy of Matt, is exciting. So the roster is growing. We don't have any plans to have anyone exit just yet. We really
no,
want to kind of build a bit and get the roster to be a little bit deeper. So look forward to more additions down the road.
absolutely.
And then of course that also brings us to Indies Prime. Last week when we had Ty on, we were able to reveal Ava Everett and Devian as the names for two of the names for Prime, and the third and final name for Indies Prime is Midwest standout. I mean, damn near you could call him legend at this point, is Jeremy Wyatt. And I am so excited that we're having this card produced at this particular point in time. I feel like hot off the heels of the IPW set in July. It's just perfect. He is a guy that we kind of talk about this very briefly in our interview with Shannon, which was pre-recorded, by the way. I'm not looking into the future. But we talk a little bit about the fact that there are guys out there and gals out there that have been able to just really make their career in total on the indie scene. And yeah, maybe they have a day job or whatever, but they haven't needed, to go to WWE or anywhere else. They've been able to just make a career, and a very good career, off of the indies. And I feel like Jeremy Wyatt is almost an unsung hero of the indies. And by way of Chad Olson kind of introducing me to him, and I'd heard of him before, mainly because I think I'd seen a match with him and Gary J,
Yeah.
who came out in the IWTV set that we did. I think that yeah, Jeremy's just fantastic, and then getting to see him in person at the IPW show in Waterloo was great. And he really does just, I think, operate on this is no offense to anyone else, but he operates on a level above a lot of really good, mind you, indie workers. He's fantastic, and I'm so excited that we're getting to release this card for him.
Yeah, no, very cool. Yeah, I definitely heard of him a bunch, but I hadn't seen too much of him until recently. But yeah, super impressed by what he did at at IPW, and I know he's been a huge part. Working with them. I think that was a big reason we wanted to include him in the set in the Indies Prime now, to kind of go with your IPW fad if you're doing an Impact Pro promotion. I think he's a perfect addition to that. So that's why we want to get him out right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, and he'll fit in any indie fed, without a doubt. There, and all you have to do is just look at all of the places that he's wrestled. Whether it's here in Illinois, for instance, or Iowa or Missouri or Kansas, even going on some, trips down to like Tennessee and Georgia, and wrestling down there. In fact, just recently he was a part of the Scenic City Invitational tournament, which is fairly big deal down south on the indie scene. So yeah,
former podcast guest Dylan Hamels helps run that every year.
That's right.
One,
yeah. So I'm thrilled with the Indies Prime lineup for sure. I think that it's a really cool one, and not to mention, of course, we got a great Legends lineup, and FTR. I think people will really enjoy. So Prime is really hopping this year, and I just feel like I've said this before, but Prime really feels essential to me, and
yeah.
I know for a multitude of reasons, if you're not getting Prime or whatever, I totally get it. But I would encourage anyone that can to check it out and get that subscription, because there's so many cool cards that get released that feel interesting and unique spots. And some of those cards, in my opinion, are like just unmissable. I mean, on the Legends side, I mean, my gosh, we've had like Eddie Gilbert and the Spoiler, and you know what I mean, like names that to me, like
the Kangaroos this year. I know,
right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think this year I will say, just kind of from sales and history with it, this is the most popular year of Legends Prime in particular.
Oh, nice.
For the year, we've already had to go back, reprint, what we've done for the first couple of quarters.
Oh, wow.
We've already gone through initial, but we have, it's usually at the end of the year, we have to, as soon as the year after, it keeps on creeping up in the calendar each year when we have to kind of reprint the Legends ones there. And this one, we had to do it early. So, which is great. It tells you there's a lot of people super interested in it. And, we're putting some good guys in there. I mean, we're putting a lot of effort into what goes into Legends Prime.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, in all the prime. I mean, indies, we put a lot of things there, and then obviously, with us focusing this year, making it, even the last 2 years, making it so much more storyline based with FTR and everything being in prime. I think trying to make the Champions of the Galaxy Prime that much more, desirable as well. So yeah, there's a lot of care put into the promoter prime, which is great. This is what we kind of envisioned a number of years ago with it.
Yeah. Well, and and speaking specifically to COTG, I mean, the fact of the matter is that this year, basically, you're getting an entire, like, product, like an entire set, basically by way of Prime. That is the same as like if you were to put in the Chronos stuff, which obviously has been
Yeah.
historically a part of Prime as well, or to do the Centra stuff purely through Prime as opposed to releasing individual sets that way. So I think it's and I don't say this just because I'm a part of the creative team on it, but I just think it's a really cool way to kind of release something and
Yeah.
again keep Prime kind of fresh, because I know that with
Yeah.
the champion side of things for a while, it was kind of, you were getting cool stuff, like the cards were really cool, but they didn't necessarily always have a place.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah. At
became
least not
more
initially. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, and then it became more clear, and they were integrated into other things. But yeah, I think I'm glad to hear that, because I think that it's well worth it, and it's deserving of that. um
Yeah.
of course, we also wanted to talk a little bit about some sad news that came out this week. Not only because, of course, the card was recently released in color in the TNT set, but just because I think the landscape of professional wrestling today owes so much to him, and that, of course, is the passing of Antonio Inoki. Um, being a big New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, and just a fan of wrestling history in general, Inoki is one of those names that has not only left an indelible mark, in the ring, but behind the scenes as well. And I think that it's it's a it's a rich history, to say the least. That there are a lot of positives, but there are some negatives as well. And I'm not here to create a hagiography of Inoki in light of his passing. I mean, there were definitely some mistakes that he made along the way, and I think that I would certainly say that Giant Baba was the better booker and businessman overall, but Inoki was one of the greatest promoters of professional
Yes.
wrestling in history. He was able to take New Japan Pro Wrestling, in 1972, and build it into, almost at the time that he left, an international brand. And the work that he had done to make sure that New Japan Pro Wrestling, that there was an awareness for New Japan Pro Wrestling across the world and not just in Japan, I think was unique, and something that was not necessarily Baba's forte, to say the least. And of course, Inoki got his start kind of as a protege of Ricky Dozan. He was only 17 years old when he started. He was living in Brazil at the time. And it ended up moving back to Japan, which is where he was born, and immediately started working for the JWA with Ricky Dozan. He trained under Carl Gotch, and he became fast friends with Baba early on. He and Baba formed a tandem, the BI Cannon, which was, I mean, just no doubt the most popular tandem, and the two most popular Japanese wrestlers in the continent, in the country, excuse me, after Ricky Dozan's passing. When the split came, and the JWA died, and they kind of had their differences of opinion, and honestly, part of what happened between them and Noki was, he was not always honest. He was not always on the up and up when it came to finances, and that would come into play later with New Japan. But that said, he founded New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1972. He did whatever he could to not only put himself on the map, but to put the promotion on the map, and he did that, of course, by bringing in names, like Carl Gotch. He wrestled Carl Gotch. He wrestled Lou Thez. He wanted to bring a legitimacy to professional wrestling. It's one of the reasons why the New Japan had that King of Sport moniker, which it still has to this day. And I think he saw as a point of pride that he wanted people to believe in what they were doing. And I think that it got away from him towards the end in the 2000s, but for the bulk of the 80s and into the mid 90s, New Japan Pro Wrestling was without a doubt the most popular promotion in Japan.
Mhm.
Frankly, it was one of the most popular promotions in the world if you looked at it from a global scale. Certainly we weren't connected as we are today, and I think that one of the interesting things that he was able to do was craft a truly spectacular heavyweight division and junior heavyweight division. And there's no doubt that the junior heavyweight division from the late 80s into the late 90s, that decade there, was one of the most influential divisions in professional wrestling history. Some of the wrestlers that came out of that, some of the wrestlers that went over there on excursion, whether it's somebody like Eddie Guerrero or Owen Hart, or of course, yeah, I'll say his name, Chris Benoit. I mean, I think that the people that
You can say
came out
well,
of there.
Pegasus, it's fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thank you. I think that there's just so much to be said, and even going back even further than that, of course, we're not to discount, of course, the influence of Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, and Roller Boy Rocco. I mean, the thing is like that division in particular always shined and was revolutionary, from the early 80s, on in through to the 90s. But of course, with the heavyweight division, you had a huge names like Masahiro Chono and Shinya Hashimoto. And then, of course, a name which has been on a lot of people's lips recently, and he's in the final era of his career, is of course the great Muta and Kaiji Muto. I mean, that character, as well as the man behind the character and the wrestler behind the character, was one of the most iconic performers in wrestling history. The fact of the matter is, though, Inoki was not always a great businessman, and the word embezzlement has been brought up many times. And New Japan Pro Wrestling, in spite of its popularity, in spite of how well it was doing, almost went out of business a number of times. But he was able to kind of come in at the last minute and help save the day, and keep things going. But it wasn't just restricted to wrestling. He was so popular in Japan that he ended up he was a member of the Japanese Senate. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
he negotiated the release of hostages with Saddam Hussein, in the 90s. He planned the biggest wrestling show ever in Korea, right? He wrestled Ric Flair in front of 160,000 people. Like, he had an incredible career. I mean, that speaks nothing of course, promoting the wrestling versus boxing match with Muhammad Ali, which, if you haven't seen it, you don't really need to waste your time.
Yeah.
It's not great. But the thing is that Inoki also, I think, saw the rise in the popularity of MMA, and he wanted to incorporate that more and more into New Japan Pro Wrestling. He had an appreciation for it, going back to his early days. I think that was something that he always wanted to incorporate more and more into New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it's the reason why he was so open to bringing in the UWF and UWFI guys, and it's the reason why in the late 90s and early 2000s, frankly, much to the detriment of New Japan Pro Wrestling, he tried to incorporate more and more of that in there. And it unfortunately, it made a lot of his wrestlers look bad. And a lot of the MMA talent that he brought in didn't have the charisma to carry a company, and it was a struggle there for a while. And when he bowed out of New Japan in 2005, the company really kind of needed a bit of a rebuild, and they were extremely lucky that one of the people that they were able to kind of hitch their wagon to was Hiroshi Tanahashi, and the rest is kind of history. That said, Inoki's presence never stopped being felt. I mean, he was shown in all of the IWGP video packages before matches. He was a presence, even in spite of no longer being the owner or the head of the company. He was a brilliant wrestler. I think that one of the things that's amazing to me about Inoki is for all the matches that he had, for all the crazy kind of headline things that he did, I always go back to his matches with Andre the Giant as being proof of how good he really was. And the reason why I say that is because if you watch any of the matches that he had with Andre, he not only made you believe that Andre was a monster, but he made you believe that he could beat him. And yes, you can level a lot of criticism at the finishes of those matches. There weren't a lot of clean finishes, and Inoki was always looking to protect himself or put himself over. But the way that he carried himself in the ring with Andre, and the way that he wrestled against Andre, I thought was always just a testament to his quality as a professional wrestler. And I think that honestly, he was able to kind of play off that in some ways when he retired, and had one of his final matches against Big Van Vader. So I think that the legacy of Antonio Inoki is one that any wrestling historian is already aware of, and if you're not, I certainly would encourage you to go back and not just watch his matches, which you should do, but read about the the way that he promoted, the way that he carried himself, the way that he saw wrestling as being something that could bring people together genuinely, like, not to sound touchy feely, but he believed that professional wrestling was a way to bring people together, to bring people into a peaceful coexistence, by kind of giving them their bread and circuses, by way of, this athletic competition between two incredible athletes. And he was absolutely an incredible athlete.
Yeah.
um he I think another testament to just how well respected he was, and how New Japan Pro Wrestling was important even early on in its formation, is that in 1979 Bob Backlund dropped the WWF title to him. It's not a title change, I believe, that's recognized
Yeah.
by
Although Corey
WWF.
Graves apparently did refer to it on Monday, which probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have happened a couple months ago, but
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think that while he had certainly, faded from public life over the past few years, and was no longer maybe quite the ever-present figure that he had been at one time, for a myriad of health related reasons, that his impact was still felt. He was still being talked about. I mean, anytime that I would be talking New Japan with anyone, Inoki's name inevitably would come up at some point.
yeah.
And I think that even though the way he did it didn't work, and might have been ill-advised in a lot of ways, his ideas for, infusing professional wrestling with more, MMA, and kind of like the suddenness of MMA, the strikes, I mean, he created strong style basically. He's one of the progenitors of fighting spirit. Like, so many of the terms that we throw around and we use these days are because of Antonio Inoki. And so I think his impact and his legacy will continue to be felt for many, many years and generations. And he's a guy that I think belongs in any and every Hall of Fame, and I think is someone that his legacy is complicated in some ways, but
Mhm.
ultimately, I think that it's one that will stand the test of time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, speaking of Hall of Fame, it was great to be able to do that card for him in the TNT Hall of Fame set this year. Yeah,
What a
just and
great card!
it was a great card. Yeah, I'm glad I got that. I got that one in the tournament. It was really neat. But yeah, no, just absolutely historical legacy is amazing. I mean, he able to work with everybody. He worked with WWF and WCW and Iraq and North Korea. I mean, like, he can work with anybody. It was amazing. I think one of the other, I've seen so many different videos that, some I've seen before, some I hadn't. It's just some of the ones that stood out. Obviously, the stuff with Vader towards the end was really interesting, kind of seeing everything with that.
Yeah.
And then the other one that really kind of caught my eye was the large line of people coming down to be slapped in the face by Inoki. I think it was right. Was it New Year's 2000 or something around, maybe some New Year's or something like that. It was so he can infuse the fighting spirit into all these people, and it was just
Yeah.
amazing watching it just like slap the crap out of all these guys. It was great.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's just it's so unique,
Yeah,
kind of what he was
yeah,
able to generate. And
yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the wrestlers that he trained, some of the wrestlers that he passed things on to, and the impact that they've had on the business. Names like, of course, Satoru Sayami, the first Tiger Mask, Hiroshi Hase, Kaiji Muto, Chono, Nobuhiko Takada. I mean, Takada had a huge impact on the business in the 90s. Tatsumi Fujinami. I mean, Fujinami is probably,
Sure.
one of the greatest wrestlers who's ever come out of Japan. And again, just being responsible for that guidance and that training. And even, I mean, even to this day, like Shinsuke Nakamura, the Kinshasa is a takeoff of the Bombaye, which was, of course, Inoki's kind of rallying cry with the Ali match and everything. So I mean, to this day, you've got somebody in WWE, who pays tribute to them with
That's
the name of
great.
their finisher. So yeah, we've said enough. I mean, you could fill an entire podcast just talking about Inoki and still not cover everything. But
Yeah.
I felt like it was our duty in a way to talk a little bit about
Yes.
him. And I hadn't said
Absolutely.
anything. On the boards or Facebook or anything about it, because I just knew that this would be the venue to do that, and this would
Yeah.
be the avenue to talk about him. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we had the opportunity to do it. And may he rest in peace.
Absolutely. Rest in peace. Well, should we get to our main event then?
Let's do it. The opposite of peace is definitely Combat Zone Wrestling. CZW, of course, has been around. I believe the company actually got it started and ran its very first show in 1999. Although the promotion proper, I think that they kind of trace their history back to sort of that 2001, 2002 period, as when they kind of branded themselves as being the kind of the new ECW, if you will. The company has had an interesting history, to say the least. Lots of ups and downs throughout the course of the company's history. They've produced some incredible talent. Some incredible names have come through there. Some incredible names have trained at their dojo. Adam Cole, MJF. I mean, just to name a couple that are kind of out there right now. Names that have come through there that didn't necessarily train there, but did a lot of work there and gained a lot of notoriety there, include John Moxley. So I mean, it's a company that has always had incredible talent come through the door, and it's a company that might be in some ways recognized for the death matches, but is not defined by that. And that's something that we talk about a little bit with Shannon. And I think during the pandemic, one of the things that happened, of course, is that the company really did went on a freeze, and they didn't do anything for about 2 years. And there was a big question about like what's going to happen. And coming out of the pandemic, last November, almost exactly a year ago, and starting to put on shows again, produce shows again. There was a bit of rebranding. I mean, literally the logo changed. The roster was very different, and sort of the division between sort of that pure wrestling and the deathmatch wrestling became a little bit more stratified. And I think the company is in a very unique and interesting position. And as they get ready to produce, really what is kind of their legacy show in so many ways, the Tournament of Death, it's a really interesting time for the company. And to have the opportunity to talk with Shannon, who does their talent relations and PR amongst many other things, was a great chance for us to dig into not only the history of the company, but talk about where the company's going. And we have so many wrestlers in the game that not only have worked there, but work there right now. So it just was a perfect fit. And we jumped at the chance to chat with her. So we hope you enjoy our conversation with Shannon, and we'll be back right after the interview to wrap things up here at Roll Up. All right, so here we are, your co-hosts Todd Jorschel and Sam Fain, and we are joined by Shannon Hunter from CZW. Also does work with XPW as well. Shannon, hi, how are you?
Hi guys, how are you?
Good.
Great. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining us.
Much.
Absolutely. As soon as I saw your tweet about wanting to have conversations about Tournament of Death and about CZW, I hopped on it. I was like, I want to do that. We should absolutely do that, because Phil Singer Games, of course, has released 5 CZW themed sets. Going back, the first one was released. When was that, Todd? I mean, it's been a while, right? Like 2000.
Yeah, I think about 10 years ago or so, something like that.
maybe
at least.
even more than that. And
maybe.
then just last year did a best of the Indies Deathmatch set as well. And one of the names in that set or invite is in the Tournament of Death this year. So I'm just thrilled to have you here. I'm so excited to be able to talk about CZW and the year that you guys are having, as well as the Tournament of Death. But first, I wanted to start off by asking, so you mentioned before we started recording that the Tournament of Death, which is October 29th,
Yes.
is your 24th anniversary in professional wrestling.
That's correct. Yes, it is. It is
That's
my
incredible.
24th first professional wrestling. Yeah. The exact day. Yes.
Wow. And so how did you get your start?
So I am originally from Buffalo, New York, but I moved to New York City to get my master's at Columbia University. And
Nice.
did that, I was still in my early 20s, and I was looking for more of a social outlet because I was going to school with people who were a lot older than me. So I was calling around to wrestling schools in the area because I loved wrestling, and seeing if, maybe they needed, some help or, something like that. I didn't really know,
Mhm.
So, I found a school and a wrestling company in Bayonne, New Jersey,
Okay.
which you're smiling, so you know exactly where I'm going with this. And I named Frank Idavia, picked up the phone, and I said, I'm here in New York and I just moved here. And I said, I'd like to come help out. And he said, well, what can you do? And I said, well, what do you need? And he said, well, what can you do? And I said, well, I can take pictures. And he said, we'll come down and we'll take a look at you. So I went to Bayonne, New Jersey, and get to this old abandoned supermarket in Bayonne, New Jersey that was next to this bar. And twisting in the wind was this plastic banner that said Jersey All Pro Wrestling. And then I met Fat Frank, and he broke me into the business.
Wow.
And that was in 1999. And that's how I started my career. And at Jersey All Pro, I met Homicide. And Homicide and Low Life Louie and a whole bunch of other people said, well, you're in New York, why don't you come down to the Doghouse? And so then I did that. And, Bobby Lombardi sort of adopted me as well. And so I spent the first couple of years of my career going from Jersey All Pro and the Doghouse. And then at those places, I met Jason Knight, who sort of then became my mentor. And he was the person who sort of trained me how to run a wrestling company. And so Jason, when he started his wrestling company, Assault Championship Wrestling in Waterbury, Connecticut, brought me to Waterbury and said, okay, now you're really going to learn because you're going to help me run my company. And so I moved from New York, and then went into New England, and then I started working for Jason, and I worked for Off of the Wild Samoan a little bit, and I worked for a lot of different people in New England, was around Tony Rumble a little bit, just tons and tons and tons of different companies. And then after a while, I stopped being a photographer and became a ring announcer. And then from there, Rock and Rebel, the infamous Rock and Rebel, said, you're way too talented to just ring announce. And at the time, Rebel had a school called Blackballed. And Chuck said, I have this environment where you can learn. And he said, I'm just going to throw you out there to manage. And, we're not really going to train you formally. I'm just going to throw you out there to manage. And I'm going to sit out here and I'm going to call audibles if you fuck shit up. And that's how I got trained. He would call audibles, and the first time I ever got bumped was by Nate Hatred in front of a live audience. And Nate, God rest him, choke slammed me in front of a live audience, and that was the first bump I ever took. And that's kind of been sort of like the MO of my whole career. But I sometime in the mid 2000s, I went to work for Pinky Flamingo at World Professional Wrestling in Reading, Pennsylvania. After a while, he was having issues and said to me and Fast Eddie Valentine, also from CZW, classic CZW, guys like to buy the company?" And we looked at each other and said, "Absolutely." So Eddie Valentine and I bought the company, and we owned it for several years until, Eddie was having some personal issues, and we ended up having to take a hiatus. And then I just, went to work consulting for some other companies. And then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And then when the pandemic happened, I started doing some remote work for some people, met the guys from Paradigm,
Oh, nice.
fell in love with them, started promoting their product, just did a lot of different stuff online for people, and, did a lot of PR for people and stuff like that. And then, just started reaching out in the deathmatch community. Because again, I had started in deathmatch because both Jason's company and JP were deathmatch companies.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
And so, I started, working with the deathmatch community over the pandemic, and started making connections. So, I made connections in the deathmatch community, and what ended up happening was, I did some shows in Tampa for, I think it was like 2021 or so, WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that was over, DJ Hyde and I connected, and he said, CZW is going to be coming back, and would you like to come work for me? And I said, yes, absolutely. So DJ and I have been friends for over 15 years, and I have, again, I worked with Eddie Valentine at WPW, and I have managed Corey Castle over the years, and I was close with Z-Bar and Nick Burke, and have a deep affection for Justice Payne. I worked with him in Delaware at a company called DCW that Jeff Rocker and I started. And so, there's and I was also very close to Trent Acid and Johnny Cashmere. We worked together at JP, and then I worked with them at PWU when it was in the old smaller building, like when they first started before they went into the arena.
Yeah.
So a lot of personal connections for me at CZW. So for me, coming to CZW is sort of a labor of love, because I want this company to be successful, because so many people that I really loved and valued worked so hard to build it, and I don't want their work to be in vain,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's important to me. And anytime anybody has asked me why I took this job, that would be the overarching thing that I would say. So many people that I really valued, that I really loved, worked so hard to build this place, and I want to make sure that their legacy is maintained, and that's really the most important thing for me.
I think that's wonderful, though, because one of the things, as you were mentioning, names, of course, is that, unfortunately so many of those names aren't with us anymore. And I think you're absolutely right that there is a legacy that has been built, and we're here in 2022, and you look back, when you got your start, like none of what we're really about to talk about tonight existed, and so the fact that it still does now, after 20 plus years in some instances, I think is a testament to the work that was put in. So I really appreciate that. Like as a fan, as someone that has followed along, I really appreciate the fact that as much as you love wrestling and want to do this, a part of the, the impetus for it, of course, is to maintain that legacy. I think that's really cool.
CZW, so next year will be CZW's 20th anniversary. This is 19. So, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there's just so much has gone into, so much work has gone into it for so many years. And I think, and I don't know if you saw my tweet stream that I put out. I think it was
I did.
either Saturday or Sunday. CZW isn't just about one person or, a couple of people. There is so much work and legacy and so many people whose lives are intertwined with this organization that, I get angry whenever anybody's like, well, it's this guy or that. It's really not. It's so many different people, and so much had to happen for these 19 years to have happened and for us to get to this moment where we are right now. And everybody played a part in it, and everybody is still playing a part in it, from the guy holding the camera to the world champion. And I think that that's the most important thing that fans need to hold on to, when they step foot through the door or they turn on the show.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that a company that, obviously, rightfully so, kind of prides itself on the blood and guts, but also I think, really the past 10 years or so kind of shifted, not shifted away from that, but was able to incorporate more kind of like that pure wrestling ethic as well, and focus on younger talent and bringing people in. And we've certainly seen some of the crowds be pretty rowdy and, and really just, thirsty for the blood. But that now, talking about that legacy, that you have fans that have been around for 15, almost 20 years. And I think that there's a point of pride for the fans that have been there the whole time, to be able to understand that the people that are so committed to the company now, one of the reasons that they are committed is because they want to honor that past and that legacy, and the people that of course have been there since day one, and some of those people who might not be with us any longer. I think that it is, like I said, it's an exceptional thing to do, because a lot of times in wrestling, we stop to take a moment to pause and honor, a fallen hero or whatever. But then it's back to business as usual from what we see from big companies. So to have a company that to me, it sounds like, certainly with your work, that you are really wanting to take this new direction for CZW and use it as a way to, to honor the hard work of all those that have come before. And I, like I said, I just really appreciate that. And I think that a lot of people hopefully will take notice of that, because it's something I think that is genuinely unique. I mean, when the biggest company in the world is just so focused on what they're going to do, 15 minutes from now, and they don't care about what they did 15 years ago, it's pretty cool to hear.
One of the things that I would like to emphasize about CZW moving forward, and I think this is something that people have been really worried about as we have come back, is that we are not moving away from deathmatch. That's not something that we're doing. There is a separation, not a moving away from. So think of it as a wishbone, and the center is CZW, right? And here is the things that you've been seeing from CZW, Limelight and the studio shows.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the death match, TOD and COD and UVU, right?
Yeah.
It's all CZW, but it's two separate divisions. And so that's how we perceive things moving forward. Now, there may be shows where we put them together, but for the most part, you are going to see this. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's kind of a cool idea too. And I love the fact that it allows you to put the emphasis on a specific thing, as opposed to having it kind of all mixed together, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything against that, but I think it's really cool to be able to focus on kind of that, here's kind of our pure wrestling, here's our deathmatch wrestling. And then every once in a while we can, put it together in the pot and see what happens.
And it's also fun because sometimes the audiences don't enjoy being mixed, because there are sometimes that the audience really just wants to see a whole deathmatch show, and they're not really interested in seeing these other athletes or these other matches. And then, you know, sometimes, as you may see with like the Limelight shows in Maryland, people just want to bring their kids and they don't want to see these other matches, or they can't.
Right.
So, you know, like, that's why I think the division really helps sometimes, because we may be able to enjoy, we may be able to have two separate audiences enjoy our product.
I think I think that's really smart, because one of the things that we were talking briefly about before we started recording is the fact that I feel like right now, and it sounds so cliche because it's said about everything from, you know, politics to entertainment to, you know, et cetera, is that there's such a dividing line between fans, you know, whether it's like old school, new school, or whatever. In this case, certainly deathmatch fans and non-deathmatch fans. And the thing is that as opposed to it being a case of like deathmatch fans just go enjoy what you want to enjoy, it might not be for me. It seems that these days, especially the more vocal members of the non-deathmatch fan community, all they want to do is talk about how awful it is, how it's, you know, how it shouldn't be, you know, even considered wrestling. So I think it gives you the opportunity to appeal to those two different sets of fans. That said, what would you say to those fans that, you know, that are out there tearing something down, as opposed to allowing others to just build it up and enjoy it?
One of the things that bothers me the most is, oh, you did that in front of 20 people for no money. Let me explain something to you. Deathmatch shows are the most expensive thing anybody ever does. Okay. Number one, because these are the highest quality athletes in the business. Number one. Number two, deathmatch is drawing more people hand over ass than a regular, and not just at CZW, everywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear that homeboy stabbed somebody in front of 20 people. I guarantee you there was 500 people there, you know, there, because deathmatch is outdrawing everything. Deathmatch saved the industry during the pandemic, because deathmatch was the only thing smoking. That was Demanto, that was Lauderdale, that was a lot of the smaller companies. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that drives me freaking crazy. These people are well paid, they're treated well, the crowds are rabid and they're full, and the whole bullshit about how they're not at, like nobody's even paying attention to that anymore.
Right.
You know, you cannot throw a stone at one of these, like nobody is a fat asshole anymore. Like that just, you know, like Warren Veidt looks like, you know, an MMA fighter.
Oh yeah, he's ripped. Yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
you're right. It's so many of these guys, you know, you look at them now and they are, I mean, they just look like athletes. They look like people that are training to do this, that they have, you know, they have stamina and endurance. They're not, you know, they're not blown up after 2 minutes of throwing chairs or whatever. It's incredible the level of talent and athleticism.
Necro survived stage.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me in DJ that he's having better matches now than he did in his heyday. I mean, I can't wait to see. At one point, due to the lymphoma, he was in a wheelchair. And the fact that like he's come back from that and he's doing this it's incredible. Necro just said on his Facebook that he was down to 165 pounds. He's now up to 281. Wow. Man.
I've always enjoyed his work, and I feel like he was able to set himself apart in a time when, quite frankly, there were a lot of, as you said, fat assholes out there just, getting bloody and throwing stuff at one another. And he was able to set himself apart. And I think a lot of that had to do with his work ethic. And, he went in there and he found his thing, and he did it so well that all the people that wanted to work with him, even folks that weren't doing death matches. And I mean, you can just point to Samoa Joe as being like a guy that's like, Samoa Joe wanted to work with Necro Butcher because he saw something different. And they ended up having, I mean, one of the best matches of the past 20 years, as far as I'm concerned.
Necro is a superior athlete. He was then and he is now. I don't know if you had the pleasure of seeing him versus Hoodfoot.
No.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
I need to check that out.
It was at XPW. You really have to seek it out. It was an absolutely beautiful match and everybody loved it. That was one of my favorite matches of the past couple of years. And it was absolutely outstanding and exceeded all expectations. And that was what solidified for me that we needed Necro for this tournament.
Yeah, so we're gonna get a little bit out of order here because I mean, I believe it or not, I did have questions planned. But speaking about the tournament, I know, right? Speaking about the tournament, I think it's such a great roster that's been assembled. And one of the things that you pointed out earlier before we started recording is that Mickey Knuckles has been in the tournament before, but to this point, she's the only woman that's ever participated in the tournament, and this is going to be her second go around. So you have, I feel like you have, between Necro Butcher being in the tournament and Mickey Knuckles being in the tournament, you have some really interesting, and again, it kind of honors the legacy, I think, that both of them have been able to establish and the time period that they came from initially with CZW. And then you've got some really cool, exciting, younger talent. We've already mentioned or invite. Can you talk a little bit about each of the entrants in this year's tournament?
Sure. So, we'll start with Necro. I feel like I wanted Necro because Necro has something to prove. And not only does Necro have the legacy, but Necro has something to prove. And we wanted to give him the opportunity to do that. And then also the fans want to see him. And, we wanted that legendary person. And he just really felt like, to me, the guy, he really was the person. He was really the person that I really wanted. And I was just so excited that we were able to get him. For Mickey, we had a couple of women in mind. And Mickey was really the first choice. We were crossing our fingers and toes that she would say yes, and thank God that she did. She has been outstanding to work with so far. And, I've talked to her a lot online, but I haven't gotten to meet her in person yet. And I'm just so excited to get to work with her. Her and DJ have worked together before. So, but we also wanted to give her the opportunity to come back to CZW and to work this group of people, because she hasn't really gotten that opportunity. We haven't announced any of the first round matches yet, but we'll be doing so later this week. And awesome. The person that she's working in the first round, she's never worked before.
Nice.
And so we're very excited for that.
And we'll hit this again at the end, but since we're talking about it right now, what's the best place for people to hear all the announcements?
Twitter, and also all of our socials on Facebook and Instagram. So just CZW Wrestling on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
But and if you want to buy tickets for the show, czwrestling.com.
Fantastic.
But so Mickey, we just wanted her to, she's been having a legendary run lately. So, we wanted to give her the ability to continue that legendary run with us. And we're just really fortunate to have her.
Yeah.
The next Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to say that I think you're absolutely right. I think that the past year and a half or so for her has really just been, kind of banner time, and the work that she's been doing has definitely gotten a lot of notice. And I think that with the prestige that being involved in Tournament of Death can carry, I think that it's a really nice capstone for this year in particular for her.
So I wanted somebody international, and my first choice was Big F and Joe, and we were again fortunate enough that he was available. And I love his character. I love his presence. I love what he brings to the table in terms of how different he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's so different from every American wrestler that we have, both on the show and like everybody that we could have had on the show. So I think he brings something really different to the table, and that was why he was chosen. I think it was really important to have somebody from overseas.
Mm-hmm.
I think, we could have had a completely American field. We discussed it. But I think it's important to not do that. I think, giving people from overseas an opportunity to show out is super important. And there are tons of other people that, in the future that we would love to work with. Shout out to the amazing Joel Bateman from Australia, who I love so dearly. And whenever that can work out for us, we will absolutely be working with him. But, I love Joe, and I can't wait. And he was chosen for his immense presence and his uniqueness, and that first round match is going to be ridiculous. I can't wait to announce it.
Nice.
The next person is somebody that I personally asked, and he dropped everything to come do the show. He actually was booked somewhere else, and
oh wow,
he was like, give me 5 minutes. Dropped everything, and that's Insane Lane.
Oh, nice.
So I said, Lane, we need you. You have to do it. And he's like, give me 5 minutes. I just got to call somebody real quick. And so Lane has worked so hard to sort of reinvent himself this past year. And that was one of the things DJ said. DJ was like, I feel like I'm looking at a completely different wrestler, and it's just so cool. Lane's so cool. And I can't wait to see him in TOD as a different wrestler. And I couldn't agree with that sentiment more. I mean, I love Lane's character. I love Lane as a wrestler. I love how Lane interacts with the audience, which I think is really different from a lot of other, especially deathmatch wrestlers, right? Because a lot of people do not put a lot of emphasis on their character, right? They're very much about what they're doing in the ring, and they're, and that's great. But Lane has really put a lot of emphasis on his character and how he interacts with the audience and the entrance and the gear and everything like that. And I think that sets Lane apart. And that's why I really said, I have to have you on the show. I think, especially in a larger context like TOD, where he's going to have so many more people to play with, and to really walk around in the audience and really feel the audience, and streaming and things like that. I think he's really going to have a lot of fun and be able to really stretch and feel his wild oats with it. And I'm really excited to see what he does.
Yeah, I mean,
next
I'm sold. I think that sounds fantastic. You know, I'm looking forward to that, and I think I appreciate too the fact that, like, you know, it feels like in this tournament that we've got such a broad range of ages as well. Like the performers, I mean, you know, I mean, Necro's like almost 50 at this point, and Insane Lane's in his 40s, and so I think that that's really really cool because the truth is that there have been so many indie naysayers out there for years that have talked about, like, how it's not sustainable. It's, all this, like, you're just working to either get to the big dance or you're not working at all. And the truth of the matter is that there are people that have had careers that maybe they've got another job or whatever, fine, but at the same time they've had notable careers that have taken place solely on the indies, and I think that that's fantastic.
So the next person was a wild horse.
All right.
And we were criticized for booking. And his name is Brad Cash. And so when we announced Brad Cash, I really took a lot of criticism. And people were like, we don't like this announcement. A lot of people threatened to sell their tickets. And I'm like, what's behind this? I don't understand. And, I appreciate the passion of the CZW fan base. And so, like, I took it like, okay, people are so passionate about this and they just don't, they don't understand this person yet. But we felt really strongly about Brad. And the reason why is this, we received some video of Brad, and we were just blown away. And we said, we have to have this guy. We absolutely have to have this guy. Like, there's just no way, we can get around it. And the thing for me about Brad Cash, and I explained this to some of the fans, because I don't know if you've perceived this or not. I've been very interactive with the fan base.
Absolutely.
On social media, and I did answer the question, and I even said this on some of the boards on Facebook. I said, I'm not going to over explain, because that is going to make it feel like I'm not confident in the decision that we made, because I am. But what I will say is, we have to cultivate the next generation coming up of deathmatch talent, because, it is a genre of wrestling that's hard on people's bodies, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to give people like Brad Cash the opportunity to step up into that upper echelon here, because Necro's getting older, Lane's getting older, Alex Cologne's getting older, Jimmy Lloyd's young, but like, he's been wrestling for so many years. Like, it's hard on people's bodies. And so, we have to give people opportunities. And I know that he's not going to squander it. Brad Cash told a story that we will tell moving forward in more detail, but he and a training companion of his got into deathmatch and wrestling in general too, because they watched TOD, and the young man passed away, and they had always said that they wanted to do a TOD. And now, years and years later, Brad gets to do this TOD, and I'm sort of like paraphrasing the story, and I'm not telling it right, but eventually we'll get Brad to make a video about it. But it means so much to Brad to be on this show, and we didn't even know that when we booked him. And so now for me, it's so much more important that he's on this show, and it's so much more special. And I'm so glad that we get to have him on the show, and we know that he's going to show out, and we know that everybody's just going to fall in love with him, because we're already in love with him.
That's awesome. I love the idea of the opportunity. It's and to kind of like combat the naysayers. Yeah, that'll be really cool. I'm looking forward to that.
So my next opportunity person was a favorite person that I met in Tampa, and then I saw them work quite a bit, and I was like, oh, I just love this guy. You know, I said, I got to have him in TOD. And his name is Otis Koger.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think when you have another family member wrestling, it's very easy to get overshadowed, right?
Yeah.
But there's something about this guy, and I think this is going to be his moment. And I love everything about his work. I love his attitude. I love his character. He's just dazzling is the word I would use. And he just hasn't been given the opportunity to really have that breakout moment where everybody's watching to really shine. And I really wanted to do that for him because I think he's truly, truly special, like a truly special generational talent. You know, like he could be like a Matt Tremont or, you know, a Brandon Kirk or, you know, whoever he wants to be, but he has to be given the opportunity. And I feel like a show like TOD can give somebody like an Otis Koger that opportunity, because everybody is watching.
Yeah.
And it's that moment. It's that moment.
It's kind of like with like, you know, PWG with Bola. It's the idea that like, it doesn't matter whether or not you win that tournament or not. Like you have a good showing, you know, you get that opportunity to go out there and wrestle, you know, just a banger of a match. People are going to pay attention. It doesn't, you know, I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter if you win or lose or whatever, fine. But it's just the opportunity to be involved with the tournament period. And I think Tournament of Death is the same exact way. It's, you know, it's like, if you're in the tournament, it really doesn't matter if you win the tournament. It just matters if you go out there and, you know, you put on a hell of a show.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is, what did you do with that opportunity? And I think somebody like Otis Koger is really ready to make the most of the opportunity that he's being given here. And like, one of the big things for me is I want this show to be so huge for somebody like him. You know, like I want to sell as many tickets as humanly possible for him.
Mm-hmm.
I want the screen to be watched widely for him, for Brad Cash, you know, like for those guys, because like, yeah, we want to make money. That's great. But like, for me personally, like I will feel successful if those guys break out because of this show. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So our next person, it was my number one get, like the person that I started jumping up and down when he said he was available, like literally jumping up and down in this room. And his name is Bobby Beverly.
Nice.
So Bev has had probably like, I don't know if I'm overstating it, but I'm probably not, probably the best year in wrestling. I mean, Bev, at least on the indies. I mean, sorry. Bev is having like an insane year.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because, you know, Bev had done a little bit of hardcore and a little bit of deathmatch, but Bev really has only started doing deathmatch in the past year and a half or so.
Right.
And he just took to it, and he's so incredible. I mean, just so talented, just has a multitude of gifts as a wrestler anyway, but like as a deathmatch wrestler, he's just unbelievable. And you know, and so Bobby was somebody that I really wanted in TOD. I thought that he was somebody that had so much potential to really change the game in terms of like how the show would be perceived. because I think there was a lot of naysayers going, well, who is CZW gonna get, you know? And so Bobby, when we were announcing people, Bobby was the first person that we announced.
Yeah.
Because Bobby has also, you know, been wrestling for so many years, and he's very respected. And so it was very important to me that the first person we announced be somebody that I felt that the wrestling world in general was going to be excited by. And let me tell you, we almost sold out the first row just after announcing Bobby.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah, he's another guy though. I agree. I think he's great and has had, you know, these past couple of years in particular, just, you know, adding kind of the deathmatch style to his repertoire has been really interesting and exciting to see. And we actually released a card for him just recently. And the cool thing is that we'd actually had him signed to the game for a while, but the card hadn't, you know, with lots of things go into planning sets, hadn't been released yet. And when it finally got released, we were able to actually do like some deathmatch stats for him in addition to the regular stats, because he'd started doing that. And if we'd released the card when he was first signed, I don't think we would have been able to do that, would we, Todd?
Yeah, probably we wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I followed up on the deathmatch. Yeah, we had done that deathmatch set last year, and then you were doing the tag team set this year, and we're like, oh, this would be really great to put him and Eric Ryan in there, and then have the tag team guys that could also do the deathmatch and really kind of work with both sets. And yeah, it was really great to do a card with Bobby, and really cool to seeing everything he's been doing this year since we released that card even.
Yeah.
So we were so excited to get Bobby, and he's been so enthusiastic with us and so fun to work with. And, you know, I met Bobby in Tampa also, and he's just an absolute doll of a human being. And so I can't, you know, wait to get to work with him more on this project. And then the final person we have discussed a little bit, however, let me tell you. So I have two favorite wrestlers right now, specifically in deathmatch. One of them is Eric Ryan. And
nice.
you know, we did call him, but he wasn't available. But you know, we did say, hey, you know, we'll work with you in the future. We love you. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. But the other one is Oren Vite. And Oren was the very first person I contacted to do TOD. And he was not negotiable. So I said to DJ throughout this process, I said, not that I didn't care who else we got, but I said, if we're going to fight about people, okay, let's fight about people, but we have to have Oren.
Yeah.
That's the one person I have to have. I have to have Oren. So when I started this process of reaching out to people, I said, you're on the show, hang tight, and then we'll build the rest of it around you. And that's basically, you know, sort of what happened. So he just, I don't know what it is about him, but I again met him in Tampa, and he wasn't really working, but he was just like running cameras and, you know, just doing all kinds of like nice stuff for people. And I'm like, God, this fucking guy is so awesome. And, you know, then I'm watching him wrestle, and I'm like, God, this fucking guy is so awesome. And I said, you know, in the back of my head, I said, you know, I'm going to get into a position where I'm going to really do something great for him at some point, you know. And now I am just so proud to get to do that for him, you know, because he deserves it, because he is so fucking awesome. And he's a great human being. He is a great fucking wrestler, and he deserves it. And you know, what was cool was we announced everybody, and we got to announce him last. And it was kind of like this fun day where like we had announced everybody, and we had these cool little moments where, you know, we got to see the fans react to everybody. And then like I had my little day where we announced Oren, and like everybody got very excited, and like a lot of people were like, well, there's your winner, and I was just like, you know, so it was like my little fun day, you know, where everybody got very excited about him, and I'm like, I'm very excited about him too. You fuckers have no idea. So, yeah, I mean, this process has been excessively fun. You guys asked, you know, when we were offline, what my job is at CZW. So my job, I have several jobs. So my job is talent relations, which is why I have been so involved in the choosing of talent for TOD. So again, like the wishbone, a lot of what I do is sort of congregated on the deathmatch side, although I am at the regular shows making sure that the regular talent is taken care of as well. But a lot of what I do, especially more intensely, is at the deathmatch shows. That's really why I was hired. So there's that. And there's also the PR arm of it. And you see me do a lot of that on social, you know, dealing with concerns, dealing with questions, dealing with trolling, dealing with, you know, the gamut of it, ticketing, like, you know, all of it.
Yeah.
And when I am at shows, I do something that I call fan experience. Where's the bathroom? Where is the you know, how do I get tickets for the next show? Can so-and-so come and take a picture with my daughter? I feel uncomfortable because of X. I can't find my seat. Can I talk to DJ about why? I'd like to sponsor the show, you know, things like that. So all of those things fall under the auspices of what I do, especially at live events.
Nice.
You need people to do that for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's very, very important. So that's
well,
great.
yeah, and it's the reason you're here, right? You know, the fact
exactly.
that I mean, that's a part of your job. But one of the things that's so great about this, and as you ran down the roster of Tournament of Death, is it's clearly your passion for it. It speaks volumes, and you know, you have to have it. And so I would imagine that, you know, when putting together this really cool, you know, roster of talent for Tournament of Death, much less, you know, regular shows, which we'll talk a little bit about, but I imagine, I mean, you're watching a lot, but before I ask you my question, I do just want to say that, you know, Oren was one of my favorite guys to research, because I ended up writing the bios for the booklet that accompanied the set that he was in. Was Oren Veidt, because I didn't know a lot about him at like when we released the set, and so that was probably the most fun that I had in, like, you know, researching somebody's bio and learning a little bit about them, because it just seemed like a stellar, you know, cool person, as well as, of course, being a hell of a talented wrestler. I think that, you know, again, we were talking about this earlier, he's such a perfect example of someone that has so much talent and is so athletic and brings so much to the table, with, you know, the stuff that he does on the mat, to the high flying stuff, to, you know, all these little influences, you know, whether it's from Japan or lucha or whatever, that he brings into the ring. And then, of course, he kicks ass as a deathmatch wrestler as well. And so I just feel like in so many ways, he really is kind of one of the perfect fusion. So I can understand why people would say, like, oh, there's your winner right there. Of course, it gives you the opportunity to surprise as well, but
there you go.
You know what was really interesting? Like, I always love, so I don't know if you're on any of the Facebook groups, like the deathmatch Facebook groups, but you know, I had so much fun, like, as we were announcing combatants, like, people like trying to guess who the next person was, and, like, you know, people were trying to figure it out, and, like, it was so funny because nobody was guessing right, so we really surprised people with who we picked. I did have, because I ran a contest, and, like, if somebody got anybody right, they won a prize pack. And we did have one guy from England, or no, Ireland, I think it was, win a prize pack because he guessed that Big F and Joe was one of the people.
Nice.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And then towards the end, somebody guessed that Oren was going to be one of the combatants, but like people did not guess. Like people were guessing people that we thought of, but then didn't end up going with. But like, you know, like it was really interesting. Like people were not guessing, and it was really, and that was really fun because then we ended up really surprising everybody. So that was really cool too.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. The thing is I think that right now the deathmatch scene is I mean, it's so deep that you've got a great pool to draw from, which kind of takes me back to the question I wanted to ask you. You're watching a lot of stuff, like, you know, even outside the tournament. What kind of has stood out to you, you know, talent wise? Like, are there any specific names or, you know, obviously don't want you to necessarily talk too much about the competition, if you will, but, you know, any places that people should be paying attention to, you know, besides CZW? I'm curious as to kind of what's on your plate right now, as far as what you're seeing out there.
Okay. So Remington Roar.
Yeah.
So if we could have gotten Remington, I would have put him in the tournament probably. And I did say that on one of the boards because people were asking about him. I love Remington.
Nice.
I love Dimitri. Also, if you're not watching Russian Deathmatch, you should be.
Okay.
Because they're fucking amazing.
I didn't know it was the thing. I gotta check this out now.
Russian Deathmatch. It's ridiculous. Nabiev, Alexei Nabiev is the fucking man. And if we could have gotten him a visa, we would have, but it's impossible right now.
Wow.
So yes. But he's incredible. But Russian Deathmatch is the wave right now. Horror Slam is beautiful. It's a great product. They're doing a lot of innovative shit. I miss No Peace Underground, but they're coming back soon.
Nice.
I really loved their product. I will say I have always loved Time Bomb, but they've gotten away from deathmatch a lot recently. But it's still a beautiful product. Don't get me wrong, absolutely beautiful product, but they have gotten away from deathmatch. Trying to think. I love Randy West. Gotta be honest. Like she's just one of my favorite deathmatch wrestlers. Would love to work with her in the next year or so. She's unbelievable. I mean, there's like you said, the pool is just so deep. There are new people that are like waving at me all the time that are like, hi, look at me. And I'm just like, I will look at you. Just give me until you know what I mean? You know, there's just so many interesting people that, you know, that are coming onto the scene that that are absolutely incredible that you know, that just blow my mind. But Remington's incredible. Like he's so underrated. And Dimitri is so underrated. The Carver of Cutter's Alley is so underrated. You know, I think it's good that XPW is giving Schlack more of a forum, because I feel like Schlack is a little underrated. You know, I think the Casanova Valentine is a little underrated. You know, there's so many absolutely outstanding, talented workers out there that, you know, that need to be given more of an opportunity to show out. It's just unbelievable how deep the pool is out there, you know. That's why I want TOD to be successful, so that we can continue to do more deathmatch, so that I can continue to book more people, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds
Well,
good.
I mean, I'm taking notes as you're saying this stuff, because I think that there is so much out there that it's easy for things to, to slip through the cracks. So that's, that it's easy to have things that you might not, be paying attention to. And Lord knows these days that there's only so many hours of the day with, two kids and getting ready to move and sell our place and all that sort of stuff, that, there's not a lot of time to watch wrestling, frankly. And I think that one of the neat things that we've seen happen over the past, you can probably go back like 4 or 5 years at least, but in particular the past couple of years, as companies have had to readjust and react to the pandemic, has just been a lot of talent stepping up, a lot of talent taking like the time to like really put their paces in, and you're seeing it all over the place. And there's so many folks that have just worked their asses off, especially over these past couple of years, that that pool is so deep, and it just means that there's a lot of really great stuff out there that you might not have the opportunity to pay attention to. So with the pandemic, I mean, CZW was dark for basically 2 years.
Yeah.
And coming back, it definitely feels like there's a different vibe to the company.
Mhm.
The roster that you guys have been using kind of regularly is incredibly diverse. I love seeing the
Mhm.
representation, with people of color, I think, on the roster, because I think it's incredibly important. Can you talk about, finding that talent, bringing in the names that you're working with right now, and sort of what the direction of the company, in your mind, like what it is, and maybe what it should be or could be?
I think for DJ, it has been really curated. I think he really sat down and thought, like, what does each individual person bring to the table? And what I have noticed is that he's having really detailed individual conversations with everybody, and talking to them about their aspirations, and where do they fit in the company, and their characters, and all of that, and giving them a lot of individualized attention, which probably a lot of companies are not able to do, or they're not getting other places, which I think is a benefit. And we did have something called a scouting combine, which people from all over the country were able to submit resumes and tape, and DJ watched them and chose people that he thought would be good. And then they came to a 2-day combine. The first day was sort of like a training session where they went through training exercises, and then the second day was half a day of training, and the nighttime was they were the people that he thought were the most likely suspects were chosen to participate in a show. So he put them together in matches, and so he could see them wrestle. And so a lot of those people are the people that you're now seeing on the roster, like Michael Mistretta and Matt Quay, and people like that. So we did get Teriyaki was actually from Georgia, was actually at the combine, and we loved him. But again,
I love that name.
What's that?
Teriyaki. That's a fantastic name.
Yeah. So, but he's from so far away, we can't necessarily have him with us all the time, but so we found a lot of really beautiful people from the combine as well. So we combined people that we already had, people that DJ had already chosen, people that are names that we're using, like JD Drake and Fred.
Fred Yehai is one of my favorite wrestlers, like, period. Like, I love Fred Yehai. Like, seeing him being on the card so much, and of course placed as like a main eventer and everything, I'm 100% behind that.
then we had people that were like the guys in Prolific that were sort of waiting, you know, they had been, you know, on the student shows or whatever have you previously. Or, you know, what were they called?
The Dojo Wars shows?
Or sorry.
That's right.
They were on Dojo Wars previously. And then, you know, DJ always had them in the back of his mind. And then, you know, once we reset, he called them up to the main roster. So, you know, and that happened with a couple of different people. So we have the people from Dojo Wars, we have people that were just on the main roster, we have the name people, we have people from the Combine, you know, people that were pulling from other different directions. So there's just a mix of people that are happening. We have old school people because Lucky 13 was with us at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's just a mix of people happening all over the place. You know, Rich Swan has been with us, you know.
Yeah. Another name that we're releasing a card for actually coming up is Trisha Dora, and seeing her on the card has been really cool. And I think that she's just, you know, she's had an incredible year, you know, year or two here herself. So it's a great roster. And one of the things that I love about it is that there's, you know, looking at some of the cards, there's names, you know, going in that I don't know, or that I'm not as familiar with, or names that I just literally have no idea who they are. And it's great because I think about the history of the company, and I think about the fact that there are guys like, you know, MJF and Shane Strickland, and you know, and the list goes on, that was them at one point in CZW. You know, they were coming, you know, out of it and in a position to go off and do the things that they've done. And so I think that there's so much talent.
That though, that's the thing. You know, here's my issue. Here's been my issue for the past couple of months. People are like, oh, who are these guys? Blah, 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 blah. People forget that we've been doing this the entire time at CZW. You didn't know who MJF was. You didn't know who Shane Strickland was. You didn't know who Rich Swann was. You didn't know who Mox was. You didn't know who any of these people were. Like, we've been doing that this entire time. So we're only doing the same thing that we've been doing. We're investing in the next generation of stars. So, you know,
well, I mean, it's clear that like DJ and, you know, whoever else that he's been working with or whatever has an incredible eye for that, because there's no doubt that, you know, I mean, there's been so much great talent that's come out of, you know, CZW that's, you know, kind of like earned their reputation or made their bones, if you will, in CZW. And I mean, you mentioned Moxley, there's Sammy Callahan, there's, you know, I mean, look where Joe Gacy is right now. I mean, there's just this list that goes on and on and goes back. Yeah. Adam Cole. Right. How can I forget Adam Cole?
Oh yeah.
His first card, we released multiple cards for him in the game. His first card was a CZW card, actually. Before he had a Ring of Honor card or anything, he had a CZW card.
One thing I wanted to hit on. So I know, you know, before the pandemic, pretty much CZW was mostly in New Jersey, running shows in New Jersey. But kind of since then, at least the last few months, they've been running monthly in Maryland. How is the expansion? How did the expansion of Maryland kind of come about, and how is that going so far for the company?
So we really love, so we're in a place called Havre de Grace, Maryland. And we have this beautiful building. It is a theater in Havre de Grace. And so we are working with the owners of the theater. And so it came about because DJ is affiliated with the owners of the theater. And we're just been very successful because the community is really behind the really behind the expansion.
Okay.
They really do
Nice.
come out to see us, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I guess we had run in the theater a couple of times before the pandemic, but not too many. It was like maybe 2.
Okay.
And then the pandemic happened, but now we run there every month. So we run in the studio and we run there. And then there may be a couple other things happening, but I don't know when or where. But yeah, so that's the schedule thus far. But Havre de Grace has been really good to us. It's a beautiful little town, and it's right on the water there. Lots of beautiful little shops and restaurants.
I pass by it in 95 when I go down to DC from New York. Every couple of months, I never know what's in there, but now I got to check it out though, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely spectacular. And so we really love it. It's a home away from home for us. So it's been a lot of fun. But we did do the Philly show this summer on the Rocky Steps.
Oh, that's
I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, we suddenly did the Philly show. I didn't realize that's where it was though. That's great.
Yeah. So the ring was right down underneath the Rocky Steps right there.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really cool. So that was a really cool experience. That was something that DJ really wanted to do, and he got to do it. So I was really happy about that. That was something that he talked about like over a year ago. He's like, wouldn't it be fun if we got to X? And I was like, yeah. And then, that became a reality. So I was really happy that he got to do that, because it was really something that he sort of manifested. And I was like, hey, that's really cool that we actually got to do that.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see TOD back in in Delaware. There, I went to one of the TOD 13 back in 2014, and that was a ton of fun. Going to the farm there, what a place to see an afternoon of wrestling, and just amazing stuff I saw that day. I think the final was Jun Kasai versus Masada, which was out of control. But yeah, just the experience itself is something you got to do in person for sure. So really, really glad to see it's back there. I know we talked before we got on that typically in the past TOD has always kind of been in June, and you can get some of that really, really hot weather down there. Luckily, the year I went, it was not too bad, but I know some other years it's been pretty sweltering. This year now kind of switching into October. And how do you kind of feel that's going to enhance the fan experience there?
Well, I feel like it enhances both the fan and the worker experience. Yeah, here's absolutely. Why, because it can be really unpleasant to wrestle in 90-degree heat. As well as watch wrestling in 90-degree heat. And as you guys know, and as your listeners know, it has been getting hotter and hotter and hotter earlier and earlier in the year. So I'm really excited that we get to do this in October. We're hoping for, not too cold weather, no rain. And we're just going to see how it goes. We're playing it by ear. We're going to see, do we like it this late in October? Do we like it this late in the year? We'll see how everybody feels about it, and we'll go from there. But I personally like the fact that it's in the fall. And I think also just in keeping with the fact that we're not running into, because, deathmatch summer, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to be on top of everybody else's shows.
Yeah. Stand out, you have your own spotlight there. Yeah.
Not only that, for a lot of reasons, it's not fair to the talent. We don't want to make anybody have to choose what they do, sure. Or, make people run back and forth. It's not fair to the fan bases either. Like, we don't want people to go, oh, I want to go to this and to that. And we do, it's just better if we can try to go, okay, let's clear everything and try to sit on our own date as best as possible. ICW is running on the 29th, but they're in the evening. And we've told people, hey, we're at 2:00. There are no non-tournament matches. Okay. To the best of our ability, we'll get you out of there. And if you do want to do both, you can try,
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is. We want people to enjoy wrestling.
Okay.
Go
That's
enjoy
great.
the show, and we don't want to ruin anybody's day, or, we just want people to have fun and enjoy whatever wrestling they enjoy, and, people have said, oh, I don't know. And I said, look, if you're going to ICW, we totally get it. We hope that you will stream our show later. We hope you'll give it a shot, and that's all we can ask.
That's great.
Absolutely. What's the best way for people to stream that show, by the way? I'm going to get all the plugs in for you.
So we are working on getting that information out. Here's the issue with the farm. The Wi-Fi is not great. So we want to make sure that we get the best quality stream for everybody. So I want to make sure that when I have the firmest information, it'll be disseminated to everybody as soon as I have the firmest and most appropriate information. So you will see that on all of our social media, and then also on the Facebook groups, Murder, Death, Kill, and Deathmatch Elite, things like that. As soon as I have the firm information about how we're streaming, I will make sure that everybody knows, because I know that has been the biggest, most important question that everybody has, because I get it, because streaming is important, but I want a quality stream. I want a stream that doesn't go down. I want a stream that, has good picture, good sound, and that's important to us. So we want to firm up all the details for you guys before we announce anything, because we want to make sure that you don't have a frustrating experience with our stream.
I think that's important. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that these days it's so incredibly important, because it's how so many of us are consuming, our wrestling on a regular basis. I mean, I haven't been to a live show. I've been to one live show in the past, like 2.5 to 3 years. Even before the pandemic, I'd kind of slowed down a lot just because I didn't necessarily have the time. So streaming was the best way for me to catch shows, whether I was always watching them live, or I was watching them when I had a little free time and I was able to watch them. So I think anybody can appreciate that, and anybody who's not understanding can, go back under the bridge with the rest of the trolls.
But I will say the best way to see TOD is live and in person. And the other thing there, and I hope makes a big comeback, and one of the most memorable parts of being live was the barbecue chicken. So I'm hoping that makes its way back there too. That was amazing. I don't know, remember who the chef was then, but that was one of the most memorable things. So
so a couple of things about, just a couple of quick things. So we will have fan catering, but we're also looking for food trucks. Okay. So if anybody that hears this before the show is a friend of somebody that owns a food truck or owns a food truck, please find me on social media at Shay Hunter 13 on Twitter and DM me, or just tweet at me, because we would love to have your food truck at our show. And then also we are always looking for sponsors, especially for weapons. So please get at me at Shay Hunter 13. Just tweet at me if you own a business or you're a radio show or anything like that. Just tweet at me and we'll hook it up. But also, if you're a fan, this is a question I keep getting. Yes, bring weapons.
There we go.
YES.
So even though there's not officially a fans bring the weapons match announced, just plan on bringing your weapons anyway.
Just bring them.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, fill your car with tubes, only T12s, please.
That's important to know. Okay.
No, there's a reason
that answers
for that.
a question I always wanted to know. Yeah.
No, there's a reason for that, because other tubes they break incorrectly and they're dangerous. So T12s are the only.
Oh, good.
Fascinating.
So we do encourage you to bring weapons. We encourage you to bring tubes, but we want to keep everybody safe. And we will have information about the stream as soon as I have it. You guys will have it. I swear to God. I just want to make sure that everything is firmed up and you will have the correct information. I don't want to give you information that's wrong and then I got to walk it back, because that doesn't make any sense either. And then also on merchandising, I will have, I know right now that we will have t-shirts, hoodies, and posters, and we'll see what else we might have. But as of right now, I think that's primarily what we're going to have.
Nice. I mean, I wish I could go in person. You know, you had asked me earlier if I would be able to attend, and I'm in Chicago and moving and all this, other sort of stuff that's going on. But I genuinely hope, because I know that there's folks that are listening to this that are a part of the game community that live, out in that area. And I hope that as many people that can make it in person from our community get out there, just because I think that it sounds like it's going to be a really special show. I think it's such a cool roster of talent that you put together. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. And selfishly, I'm hoping that we'll be able to use this opportunity to get some of those names that we don't have in the game signed to the game, so that we can produce game cards for them, and maybe do something special down the road, because I think that would be really, really cool, because we've got cards for Necro Butcher and Bobby Beverly and Or Invite, but that's it. So it would be great to add the rest of the Tournament of Death roster to the game down the road. I did want to take a moment, speaking of our community. We have a lot of fans of the game that have been, playing CZW or playing indies game sets for years now. We've been producing them for quite a while, and we've gotten to see quite a few of those names, of course, explode and go on to be big stars or whatnot. But the community has always been supportive and has been involved in wrestling in numerous ways. And someone that was very important to us that worked with CZW that unfortunately is no longer with us is Lyle Williams. And I just wanted to, to take a minute to see, how well you knew Lyle, what you knew of Lyle. And of course, Todd can talk about this a little bit too, because Todd knew Lyle. I unfortunately didn't. I knew of him, but so yeah, I'd love to hear, your memories of Lyle.
Well, I knew Lyle extremely well. I was, obviously I started as a photographer, so
Right.
we were in the same community, and I loved Lyle dearly. Lyle was an incredibly special person. When somebody is dedicated to CZW, we say they bleed black and yellow, and nobody bled black and yellow more than Lyle. Lyle was at CZW if he was tired, if he was sick. It didn't matter. Nobody loved the company more than Lyle. And I feel like it's weird, because I feel like there's going to be like this hole where he was. This may be the first TOD that he won't be at.
Because I know I think it's 2019 where he passed. Yeah. So it very well might be. Yeah.
So, I think, they're goddamn impossible shoes to fill. We have Frankie Kurz, who's an amazing photographer, but, an incredible, immense talent. But, Lyle, it was just, he was with us for so many years and so beloved. And, he would come to other projects that I was doing and shoot as well. So, I mean, he just, I loved him dearly. He was just a close friend, and yeah, I mean, and the thing about it is, we're also missing our dear fan as well. The guy in the front row.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. His name is escaping me. And I just saw a video of him today where DJ was singing him happy birthday sitting on his lap.
Oh man.
Yeah, gosh, when you're undercaffeinated,
No worries. You know what? I just went and did a search here. Would it be Kevin Hogan?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
So we're missing Kevin Hogan as well. And I can't remember for the life of me what year he passed. But
2017.
yeah, so we're missing Hogan as well. So, like that's a huge loss as well, because like he never missed a show.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, I
it's
think
definitely.
go ahead, Todd.
I was gonna say, yeah, definitely, I knew Lyle obviously more than Kevin, but just all these different fixtures there, missing that, it does seem like a part is missing out, but at least we have the legacy going on there. Lyle, his big thing was he wanted to, he gave so much time to the sport of wrestling, and he just wanted the guys who were giving their all in the matches a bigger spotlight. Anything he could do to give them more of a spotlight, that's what he wanted to do it, and it was always amazing that how much time and effort he gave. So yeah. And then he, again, with our game, he was always such a big supporter with us, and providing providing photographs, but also helping us get in contact with different wrestlers. A lot of the CZW set was because he was helping us introduce people, introducing us to people, and but always always great to always the smiling face to see it at any show there. I'll definitely miss seeing him at any show for sure.
Well,
just an absolutely incredible guy.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure that we took a moment to talk about him and just kind of pay tribute to him. And I think that Todd hit on it, and of course you mentioned it from the get-go. But the being able to remember like the legacy of this community goes beyond even just the wrestlers in the ring. And I'm gonna fit this in. It's gonna be our last thing before we wrap up. But speaking of wrestlers and people that are no longer, you mentioned Justice Payne earlier, and we were able to produce a card for Justice Payne last year, and I was really excited about it because, again, having watched CZW early, I mean, he was the man, and he was in there with so many different people, people that today, like, I mean, he had a match like Sami Zayn, for the CZW title, I mean, he had a match with El Generico, who was retired to an orphanage in Mexico. I'm sorry, I keep confusing the two. Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to just, since you had mentioned him earlier, again, to take a moment to, just to talk about like one of maybe your favorite memories that you're allowed to talk about, about Justice Payne.
So my thing about Chris was that this is something that people don't know about him. He was the most chivalrous person I ever met in wrestling. He loved women, and he was protective of women, and he really cared about you. And he had a very sort of hard exterior, soft interior. And I remember, I won't say who this is out of their privacy, but a girl that we worked with was having a really hard breakup with another wrestler, and he was working that guy, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." So he was sort of like brawling around the building with this guy, and they got to the concession stand, and all of a sudden, like, this girl walked up next to me, and her and I were best friends. So she walks up next to me, and we're watching the match, and Chris like lays this guy over the concession stand and starts pouring every condiment over this guy's body, completely destroying his gear, ketchup, mustard, relish, all over his face, his body, his expensive gear. And that was Chris. Like, like he had your back.
Oh man.
But like that flies in the face of a lot of stories you hear about him, because like he could be King Pancras, or he could be exacting when you worked with him in matches or whatever, but like he was like, if he really cared about you, he really cared about you, and he had your back.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, yeah, like I said, we wanted to take a moment because I was really excited that we were able to get a card for him. And when you mentioned him earlier, yeah, he was. I honestly, it wasn't necessarily something I had planned on talking about. Like I thought, like, oh, if we get the chance, great. But when you mentioned him earlier, I wanted to make sure I brought him up again. Shannon, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough for joining us and for being able to talk so in depth about the Tournament of Death, which is October 29th. And details will come, of course, about streaming. So make sure that you're following CZW on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And of course, you can follow Shannon as well, Shay Hunter, SHAE Hunter, over on Twitter for updates and everything. But before we let you go, before we get out of here, is there anything else that you wanted to address? Anything else that you wanted to talk about that we missed?
Please come to my damn show. Please come to my damn show. No, please come to a Tournament of Death. Because here's the thing, like, Tournament of Death is just sort of like such a huge one for us, and we want to do the thing and come to it and support it and keep supporting it, and the more you support it, the more of it we're going to do. And I feel like support it, and the more it's going to build on itself. And that's what I want to say about that. I just feel like, let's make this one really huge, and then that way we can do more things and build it bigger and get more people in here, and help the Remington Roars and the Carvers and all of these people, give them a bigger platform, because that's really what it's about. I'm not doing this shit for my ego. Like, I'm doing this shit for Otis Koger. I'm doing this shit for Brad. I'm doing this shit for the younger guys, so that they have a place to ply their trade. They have a place to get seen. They have a place for you to enjoy them. I want the fans to have a beautiful experience. I want the workers to have a beautiful experience. I want CZW to continue to have a beautiful legacy. And that's why I'm doing it. So come, enjoy yourself, have a beautiful time, so that we can continue to keep entertaining you. But we can't continue to keep entertaining you if you don't come. And that's really what I want to tell you about that. We want to continue to do this. But if we're going to continue to do this, and this is true of every company across the board, no matter how big or small, how successful or moderately successful or not successful, we must have your support. And we are dependent upon your support if we are going to continue to entertain you. So that's what I want to say is, buy the merch and come to the shows and stream them. We are so grateful for you. We are so lucky to get to do this. It is a dream come true. It is an absolute pleasure, honor, and dream come true to serve you like this. Don't get it twisted. On my worst day, I hit my knees at night and thank God for the opportunity to do this. But you have to support us if you want us to continue to serve you in this way. So that's what I want to say. czwrestling.com, buy those tickets, and as soon as I have information on the stream, I will let you know.
Fantastic. Awesome. Wow, that's so great. Yeah, let's make Tournament of Death 19 a huge success, so that Tournament of Death 20 can be even better, even bigger, even more to do. Shannon, thank you again so much.
Yes, thank you, Shannon.
What an honor. Thank you so much, guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take care of yourself. We're going to be right back here in just a moment with more. But again, we wanted to thank our guest, Shannon Hunter, for joining us to talk CZW and Tournament of Death and anything and everything else. So thanks again. Have a wonderful night.
Predict major wrestling pay-per-views with the Jobber Radio Prediction League. Win free fight TV events, wrestler merch, and more while competing for Prediction League championships. Sign up for free at jrpl.jobberradio.com. JRPL. Watch, predict, win.
Todd, I don't know about you. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah,
Shannon,
a lot of fun. We had to put a lot of money into Mike's swear jar with that one, but I think it was well worth it. So,
yeah, I completely agree. It's funny, Shannon, and this is not me patting us on the back or anything, but Shannon sent me a message afterwards talking about her words exactly were how dope the conversation was and how much fun she had. And so I thank you so much, Shannon. It was a really great time, and I can't wait to see what's next from the company. And I'm, as somebody who has run a bit hot and cold on deathmatch wrestling, to be completely honest with you, because I don't necessarily like deathmatch wrestling for the sake of deathmatch wrestling. I do believe that there are great performers out there who are really, really good at deathmatch wrestling. Talking about somebody like Necro Butcher, I mean, that's a guy who, I don't care what anybody says. Like, you watch one of his matches, like, he is out there. It's a fight. He's telling a story, and it's unique. And I'll die on that hill any day of the week. He's great, and there are plenty of other folks out there that are bringing their own unique.
I noticed I've been to a couple CZW events, and the two matches that jumped out to me were both Masada versus Jun Kasai matches. So Jun is from Japan. Saw them at the first ever WrestleCon show. They were in the main event of the CZW show there, and then they were also the finals of the Tournament of Death that I did go to, and just kind of seeing that, it's like, oh, okay, no, these are guys who they're doing it the right way, and when it's done the right way, it's a wonderful thing. It's not just gory guys beating up each other, with no story. There's a big story with it. So
right, yeah, and I'm really looking forward to Tournament of Death 19. I think as soon as kind of the streaming information comes out for that, I'll try and get it out there on our social media, as well, of course, put it out on the boards and the Facebook group, just so people know and are aware of exactly how they can watch it if they're not going to be in the Delaware area. But if you are, get a ticket, go see the show, see some wrestling outdoors as the leaves fall around you. I know
I can't make it this year. I'm hoping for 20, maybe I can make it down there. That'd be cool to kind of make a comeback there for that. It's great atmosphere and event for that. So definitely recommend it as one wrestling experience that everybody should do one time. So
yeah, I'd love to make it out there for one. And one of the last thing I'll say too about our interviews, I really appreciate the the importance of legacy and the importance of kind of honoring what has come before and the hard work and the literal blood, sweat, and tears of everyone who's come before to build this company over the past 20 plus years, and getting the chance to talk about names like Justice Payne was really cool. And of course, obviously, the chance to kind of pay tribute to Lyle Williams was a great opportunity. We couldn't not do it. And Shannon, of course, knew Lyle pretty well. So thank you so much, Shannon. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we get the chance to do it again sometime, because I would love to, as I said in closing, I would love to be a year from now talking about TOD 20 with Shannon. And who knows, there might be we might be able to do something sooner rather than later with her and other folks. So that's all for me. I don't really have anything else to talk about, but you, sir, you have some stuff that you might want to allude to or hint to or tease from Fed HQ.
Got a couple things. Well, first I'm going to do a non-Fed HQ. I'm going to do a little bit update on our Lego corner from last week. So I did show you right before we recorded some here. I have completed the DeLorean from Back to the Future, and it's amazing. Highly recommended.
It's so cool. Yeah,
it's super cool. I did as the Back to the Future 1 car, but you can do 2 and 3, and just the stuff they have in there, it's absolutely amazing. And
I'm going to drop this as a video, so if you want to show people the DeLorean, you might as well put it up
Definitely
there.
do that. Yeah. So there we go. There's the DeLorean right there.
Looks incredible.
Yeah, the doors come open and the wheels pop out there. It's super cool. Out of time.
I love, like, please don't get me wrong, I love the look of like traditional Legos. I really, really do. But the craftsmanship, the architecture that goes into a product like that is absolutely incredible, because it doesn't look like a Lego. You know what I mean? Like it looks like a scale model, you know, and it's super, super cool. A lot of fun little gimmicks. You were showing me some of this stuff.
Oh yeah, a lot of the gimmicks. Yeah, the little you know, the was it the little Fusion-O-Matic or something that he puts on the back there. It's got a beer can and a banana peel in there and stuff. And then you got all the little touches there. They're very good at doing that at Lego. So super cool there. And so, you know, some point I'm gonna get that cantina done. It'll happen at one point. But this one here caught my eye. I definitely wanted to get this one right away. So that's good there. The other thing I will mention from FitHQ, so we are kind of nailed down a date for the virtual con for October, which is going to be Sunday, October 23rd. Probably by the time we're back with next episode, we'll have a lot more details on that, all the times and stuff. But the plan is to do, as usual, a couple tournaments ahead of time for people who want to participate in that. We'll do an Indies women's tournament, a War Games tournament with 2092 and 2093 cards in there, as well as a CAC based Legends tournament. So different Cauliflower Alley honorees there, because you know, just kind of following up on like Tom's visit at the Cauliflower Alley and the Brie Brian Blair card. So we'll do a tournament with that too. So you know, guests,
very nice.
And, you know, panel, which kind of talk about the recent releases as well as upcoming releases. So lots more with that. And yeah, we'll have a couple of things kind of up until then. You know, a couple other things are create a character contest that we alluded to before. Details will come out on that, you know, right before the con as well. But October 23rd, make sure to block off the date. I think right now looking at 12 to 3 for, Eastern for tournaments, and then 3 to 5 for kind of everything else. So if you want to just join for that, and there will be a Champions and a Legends card that'll be, you know, exclusive for the con too. So many more details on that coming soon, but that's the latest from FitHQ.
Love it. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I always love the virtual cons. A lot of fun, and it's always great to be able to talk with the teams and interview guests. And I mean, let's face it, the cards, man. The cards, the exclusives. You got to get the exclusives. Look forward to hearing more information about that and getting kind of a rundown of all the events, which of course we'll provide for you here. To be completely honest with you, next week is a little up in the air. We've got a couple of ideas for next week's show, but we're shifting some things around just out of necessity. You know, we've had a couple of schedule changes here or there, or, you know, I might have something to do, Todd might have something to do, etc. So we don't know exactly what we'll be bringing you, but it'll be cool, I promise. And maybe we'll have some guests on as well. So I think it's time for us to get out of here. What do you say, Todd? Oh, I've lost your sound. I can't hear you.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. I'm back. Yeah, no, it's time to get out of here, and I do have to leave you with 3 last words, and that is "Let's go Mets."
Okay, I'll allow it.
You'll allow it. Thank you.
I don't dislike the Mets at all. I just have never. They've never been my team for a myriad of reasons. But I love and respect your reasons for loving and respecting the Mets. So I will echo your "Let's go Mets." And if you're paying attention, it's one of the best times of the year for baseball fans, because, you know, all season long, it's all come down to playoff baseball and heading into the World Series. So we're going to get out of here. Take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and stay safe out there. And remember to roll those dice responsibly.
Yeah.